Hey everybody, sorry about that. Welcome back to JT Channel and welcome to a healthy discussion about pro wrestling. We do these a lot on this channel, and this time we're just here to talk about how comparison can be the thief of joy. Just so you know, the title of the video is just for fun. Obviously, wrestling fans can be happy. I'm very happy as a wrestling fan right now and as a fan of all pro wrestling. But I do think it's important to discuss these things. And as I've said in the past, I have a very small voice on this corner of the internet, but I do have a voice. So I would like to use that from time to time. And of course, as the thumbnail shows, what I really want to talk about is the steel cage matches that took place at AEW Revolution and Monday Night Raw from Madison Square Garden. AEW was, of course, Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, and while Monday Night Raw was Seth Rollins and CM Punk. Now, I would like to preface this whole video by personally saying I loved them both. I was not able to watch all of Revolution. I wasn't able to afford it at all. I had to bootleg it a little bit, but I got to see the matches I wanted to see, which was Toni Storm, Mariah May, Kenny Omega, Konosuke Takeshita, my dog falling off the couch in the background again. But of course, the Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher cage match was it was brilliant for what it was, and same for Seth and Punk. So that's my immediate takeaway. The TLDR, if you don't want to watch this whole video, I do think you should, is that I loved both of them, and there's no reason to compare the two. However, the IWC exists, and pretty much from the moment the Seth Rollins CM Punk steel cage match was announced and I was reminded of the Will Ospreay Kyle Fletcher match, I knew this was going to happen. I knew that on Tuesday, I had to check the date, on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, that people were going to be arguing online on which cage match was better. This one wasn't good. This was bad. I hate this. CM Punk sucks. AEW sucks. Blah, 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 blah. I knew that was going to happen. So I made sure to go out of my way to watch both those matches. Like I mentioned, wasn't able to catch the whole Revolution pay-per-view. I wasn't even able to watch all of Monday Night Raw. I watched like the last hour and a half to 2 hours of it. I missed everything from like before. I don't even know. I'm doing the thing, aren't I? I'm losing my train of thought. My ADHD is kicking my ass. Anyway, I did get to see the cage match, is the important part. Now, if we analyze the two cage matches separately, you have to remember who's in them and what the significance of the cage matches were, whichever. The Ospreay Kyle Fletcher match. Their feud has been based on betrayal and the Don Callis family and Kyle Fletcher becoming this bigger star than he ever was before. And Don Callis and crew are very violent. They use screwdrivers and cheap shots and all that. So the point of their match was to be these two former friends just bludgeoning each other inside a cage. Now, the cage was supposed to stop anybody from entering, but Mark Davis showed up in about 2.79 seconds. So, is what it is with that. But it also took place in All Elite Wrestling. And that's something that a lot of people on both sides of the coin don't seem to understand. People that hate AEW and people that love AEW don't seem to get that AEW is a different company. They allow gratuitous amounts of violence. And that's okay. You know, it wasn't okay when Jon Moxley was bleeding every single time he wrestled. But, hello. But we're past that now. And this is not the video to conversate about Jon Moxley's title run. But it has gotten better now that he doesn't have to bleed all the time. Ospreay and Fletcher had to be in a position where they had to take their rivalry and put it on a pedestal with all this other stuff going on the same show, including the Toni Storm Mariah May match, which was probably the best match of the night and will definitely be in match of the year candidates when we get there at the end of the year. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I had to go off the video for a second and deal with some stuff. But point is, when you have a feud of that caliber, let's say, you know, that the best friend turns his back on somebody and he keeps getting beat up and you put him in a steel cage in a company that allows that kind of level of violence, you kind of know what to expect. I admit that I was surprised a little bit. You know, there was the barbed wire bat, there were screwdrivers, there was all this crap. and thumbtacks, because of course, why wouldn't there be thumbtacks? And all this happened in the confines of a steel cage. Of course, again, Mark Davis, Don Callis, same old, same old. And you had the Spanish fly spot. A Spanish fly from the top of a steel cage. I can only imagine how scary that is. I used to wrestle. I used to train anyway. I never got official matches. But I never took a Spanish fly, and I can't imagine taking one from the top of a steel cage. Sometimes they do them off the ropes, and I'm like, ugh! So you take all that, and really, they did exactly what they should have done. For an AEW big feud steel cage match, perfect, in my opinion. Excuse me. And I think they did like a Styles Clash on the thumbtacks, and it was just, ugh. you know. But with that being said, as it was perfect, in my opinion, as far as what they wanted to do. And I know it feels like I'm repeating myself, but I'm just trying to make sure that I cover all the bases with each match. Speaking of, that match ended, the pay-per-view ended, and people like me, fans that like all wrestling, just enjoy wrestling, we started to look forward to Raw and the steel cage match between Punk and Rollins, but we knew it wasn't going to be the same. It was going to be a lot different in its own right. It was going to be really good, and it was. In the Punk-Rollins cage match, you had these two guys that always hated each other, that never wanted to be on the same page, and now they're being stuck inside a cage together, so they just started beating the hell out of each other. There was a steel cage powerbomb pretty early on. They were throwing each other to the cage. They were diving at each other. They would beat the holy hell out of the other one and then open the cage door like, go on ahead, get out of here. You had that superplex spot, which it's so unique because it's treated like it's such a massive deal when it's hard to explain that it's almost regular, but it's not. Like you're kind of dangling from the cage on the top rope and you go flying backwards instead of the usual lift and fall. It just looks and seems more devastating. And then you had the kickouts, the LOL kick out at 2. And that one made me laugh because I was wondering if these, people that complain that there's too many kickouts in All Elite Wrestling, are they also going to complain about all the kickouts in this match? Because I think CM Punk hit 3 GTSs and Rollins was still kicking out at 2.999 ad infinitum. So, and then, of course, Punk kept kicking out of stomp after stomp, and it was really good. It was exactly what those two needed to do. Same concept, and Punk hitting elbow drop after elbow drop, and I think he hit a top of the cage elbow drop at one point. They were just hitting each other with everything, but neither one of them were going to give up. Neither one of them were going to leave the ring. They both kept kicking out. There were submission holds. If you went in, and this is where I'm going to seem a little rude, but sometimes I feel like I have to be a little mean. If you went into the Punk-Rollins match with your expectations stuck on the Ospreay-Fletcher match, you're an idiot. There is no world, there is no universe where Seth Rollins and CM Punk were going to do a Spanish fly off the top of the cage. CM Punk's old, okay? And Seth has a bad back, like a really bad back. So why on earth would either man agree to that spot? I'm surprised Punk is the one who did anything off the cage. I didn't think either one of them were going to. But they did because they're in it. They're in it. They're here for the fans. They're here to have a good match. So if you liked the Fletcher Ospreay match more, that's fine. I'm not saying you're stupid for liking that. I'm an AEW fan. I liked AEW more than WWE all the way up until like 2023 when they started to kind of seemingly have issues with their storylines and stuff like that. But personally, they were both fine. I am a huge Seth Rollins and CM Punk fan. Like, I love them both. Before Punk came back, Rollins was my guy. And I've talked about how much I've loved Roman Reigns on almost every wrestling video I've ever made. I've loved Roman Reigns since he was down in NXT, before he was known as Roman Reigns, and I followed him ever since. So when he came, I know I haven't talked about this yet, but when he came out and cost Punk the match, but more just to get Rollins out of the cage so we could beat the hell out of him, I loved it. I love that we're getting that triple threat match. And that's where the kind of issue comes in, is that steel cage matches are meant to keep people out and keep the competitors in. But you had Mark Davis interfering like a wild man in the steel cage match. Then you had Roman Reigns drag Seth out, get him the win, beat him up, and then go beat up CM Punk as well. So the point of this video is to remind everyone that is on the internet either saying that the Punk Rollins match was not going to live up and it was crap and all this stuff and it's not as good as that one. What are you doing? Like, do you really have nothing better to do with your free time? I have a lot of free time. Even with a daughter, I have a ton of free time. But I use it well. Like, I'm constructive. I don't go online and scream that one cage match was better than the other. And the consensus, the general consensus, is that the Ospreay match was better. But the explanations are quiet for the most part. They just yell, "It better, WWE bad." That's not an explanation. I get it. I'm not disagreeing with those people because they have a valid point if they use their words. And don't think I'm just shitting on AEW fans. WWE fans do it too. People that, like, lifelong AEW haters who are never going to stop hating that company, they're the same way. They're like, too many flips, too much blood, it bad. Those aren't proper explanations. The Ospreay-Fletcher match was perfect because of the violence, because they were allowed to go that far, because Ospreay was able to fight back against both Davis and Fletcher, because of the terrifying but well-executed Spanish Fly spot. That's why it was so good. That's why they liked it more than Punk and Rollins, who weren't allowed to go too crazy, but their feud didn't need it. Same for the people that liked the Punk Rollins cage match more. That was a different kind of feud. They just wanted to punch each other in the face and fight inside that steel cage. They didn't need the blood. They didn't need the violence. They didn't need to throw each other off of the cage or anything. They just needed to hit each other as hard as they could over and over and over again. And the interferences made sense for the most part. Mark Davis is like, he has to do stuff for Don Callis because of the contract or something. That I'll admit that story's a little convoluted, but it is what it is. And then Roman Reigns coming after Seth and costing Punk. Perfect. And the Paul Heyman Punk stuff. Oh, man. I was literally on my feet going, no way. No fucking way. The point, again, of this is just to remind everybody that pro wrestling is in a really good spot right now. I saw somebody compare AEW to TNA as if that's some kind of insult. I think TNA's been around for 23 years now. Like, yeah, they're not WWE, but no one's ever going to be WWE. People started complaining, well, not complaining, but I guess laughing, going, ha, 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 at AEW because they started scaling down their arenas. Why is that a bad thing? They recognized what everyone was saying. They can't sell out arenas like they used to. They can't pack these 20, 30,000 people arenas or stadiums like they used to. So what do? They started downsizing a little bit. They're not losing any money. They're probably selling the exact same amount of tickets, but now when they sell 8,000 tickets, that fills up the place. There's 10,000 people in this building. How many people were at the very first All In? 10,000. And that changed everything, didn't it? I know I come off on these videos a lot as a super AEW mega fan, rah, rah, rah. But I love pro wrestling, and I'm tired of listening to people punch down any company. You know, I've seen 50 posts today on social media saying, well, let's just be honest, Ospreay and Fletcher were way better than that crappy WWE steel cage nonsense bullshit, rah, rah, vomit, vomit, vomit. I've literally seen vomit emojis. I'm not exaggerating. Just because Ospreay and Fletcher were allowed to go further and do more things. If Punk and Rollins wanted to, they could have done anything. Anything. Rollins could have done that Phoenix splash off the cage. But did he need to? No, he didn't. We got a cool elbow drop spot from an old man that people can't stand for some reason. Speaking of cages, my cats are fighting by the dog's crate. Play fighting. Anyway, not the point. I just think, like the title of the video, like I said, it's supposed to be fun. But as wrestling fans, we should all be happy. If you prefer All Elite Wrestling, go for it. It's a really good product right now. Yes, the world title season's a little finicky, but for the most part, it's a good product. Enjoy yourself. If you prefer WWE, oh my God, it may be the best it's ever been. I know that people automatically go, well, Attitude Era this and Attitude Era that. We're not in the Attitude Era. We're in 2025. Monday Night Raw is not even on cable television anymore. It's on a goddamn streaming service. So you can't compare the two anymore. And if you don't like either one, if you're a TNA guy, if you're one of the people that have watched TNA your whole life and you've just you still love it, good. They've lost a few people recently and that are probably going to show up in AEW and WWE, but doesn't mean TNA's not on a roll right now. They are. I love TNA. New Japan, All Japan, Stardom. I could go on and on and on. Whatever wrestling you like, 2025 seems to be at peak right now. Really, 2024 was peak for sure for a lot of things, and AEW was even doing so much better at one point. It is okay to not like something, okay? I did not care for the world title match at Revolution. I didn't get to watch it, but I read about it. I watched clips. I heard reviews. I didn't care for it. I personally thought that Adam Copeland should have won the title, and then Christian Cage could have cashed in on him, and we could be walking into a world title feud between the two. Instead, we just did Mox wins LOL. And a lot of people are comparing it to Cena wins LOL. That's why I said that. I love Jon Moxley. He is one of my favorite wrestlers in the entire world. But even I can admit that the Death Rider story has fallen flat. Moxley should have lost the title by now. I thought we were going with Darby Allin. It seemed to be clear to me that the feud between the Death Riders and Darby Allin was going to end with Darby winning the big one, and Darby hasn't been seen in weeks. I know the Death Riders killed him, but are we going to go back to that? And since Moxley beat Cope and Christian Cage, are Cope and Christian Cage, is this like the start of Cage's face turn? Probably not. And that's, upsetting, because that's exactly where this should lead. It should lead to E and C coming back together. Or C and C, I suppose, since he's Cope now. I also don't care for how the WWE Women's Intercontinental title is kind of being treated like Vince McMahon would have treated it. And I'm sorry, but it's true. There is no real jeopardy. There was a random number one contenders match that really didn't make any sense. And now Raquel Rodriguez, who I also love, somebody who doesn't get enough credit ever, is also now the number one contender for that title while she's also the women's tag champion. Now, the match will be good. Lyra Valkyria and Raquel Rodriguez will be a really good match. But why? It's hard sometimes when you're a fan of everything because you have to be able to pick what's good and what's bad. My point with that is that even though I love all wrestling, there's things that I don't like. There's things that I love, things that I don't like. I guess I can end this video by saying that if you want to voice your opinion on how much you didn't like something, that's fine. But remember what I said earlier. Comparison is the thief of joy. If you liked the Will Ospreay Kyle Fletcher steel cage match, great. If you liked the Rollins Punk cage match, great. You don't got to compare the two. If you're like me and you like all wrestling and you decided to watch both, watch them both in the context they were given to you. You know Ospreay and Fletcher are going to have a more violent match, a more flippy-dippy doodah match. It's AEW. The feud is built different. Watch it knowing that. If you're going to watch the one on Raw, you know that it's WWE. You know that Triple H is letting him get away with a little more, but how much are Seth Rollins and CM Punk really going to do? And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't fully mention once again that, don't forget Roman Reigns pulled Seth Rollins out of the cage, giving him the win, but then also beating him up and then beating Seth up. Maybe you didn't like that finish. I loved that finish. Punk is going to be like, oh, you cost me the match and you attacked me. Oh. And then Ospreay and Fletcher, I don't know where they go from here. I don't know. That's a different question for a different, for a different YouTuber, I suppose. Maybe that feud continues. I thought this whole feud with the Don Callis family, Omega and Ospreay was going to lead to the Young Bucks coming back. And that would be like maybe Stadium Stampede or, what the hell is the other one? Anarchy in the Arena or Blood and Guts, whatever. And maybe that is still what's going to happen. So the long and short of it is just enjoy what you enjoy. You don't have to compare it to every other thing. It's okay. I will never stop being a fan of all pro wrestling. If it was up to me, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If I could, I would watch Raw on Mondays, NXT on Tuesdays, Dynamite on Wednesdays, TNA on Thursdays, SmackDown on Fridays, Collision on Saturdays, and then pay-per-views when they're on, which, that is what it is. But I don't have that luxury right now. And I would love every minute of it. I would watch Ring of Honor if I could afford it because I think that's on a stream, like a Ring of Honor specific streaming service. So again, it is what it is. But thank you everybody so much for watching. I know this was a long-winded way of just telling you stop comparing shit and just enjoy wrestling. But I figured this was, like I said, I had to talk about it. I knew I would want to talk about it pretty much as soon as the cage match between Rollins and Punk was announced, but even more so after Revolution. When I watched Revolution on Monday, like during the day, I watched that cage match in the early morning and then watched the other cage match at night. So I had like all these thoughts in my head and I really wanted to bring it up. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know which cage match you preferred. If you ask me which one I preferred Seth Rollins and CM Punk, but only because I'm so goddamn biased, okay? They are two of my favorite wrestlers ever, and then you throw Roman Reigns in at the end. You're hitting all my buttons, you're checking all my check marks, and I'm very, very excited to see what happens next. And again, that does not mean I didn't like the other one. I love the other one. But that's it for now. More wrestling stuff to come over the coming weeks. WrestleMania is, like 39 days away. I can't wait. Until next time, this is JT Channel. I am JT, and I will see you on the next one. Both matches were good. Stop it.